Listen to me. If you think you know what happened to Nancy Ellen Guthrie, you're probably wrong. Because this isn't some story that wraps up neat and tidy with a bow. This is a real case. This is happening right now. This is the moment when a family wakes up to discover their 84-year-old mother has vanished from a locked home. And somewhere out there, someone is listening to this, and they know exactly where she is. They know what happened. They know where her body is, or where she's being held, or what state of terror she's living in at this very second. And the reason I'm telling you this is because you might be listening to the words of the person who figures this out. You might be the connection, you might be the witness, you might be the one who finally says something. Blood on the doorstep. A medical device ripped from her chest and left behind like garbage. Security cameras destroyed. A pacemaker that keeps an old woman's heart beating gone. 13 days of silence. 13 days of not knowing. 13 days where every second counts and every moment matters. And Nancy Ellen Guthrie's family is begging for their mother back. This is the Untold Cold Case. I'm your host, and what you're about to hear is the disappearance of Nancy Ellen Guthrie. And I need you to stay with me. I need you to pay attention, because if you're the type of person who watches these videos, there's a reason. There's a reason you clicked. There's a reason you're here. And somewhere in these words, you're going to hear something that clicks, something that resonates, something that makes you realize you know something. You saw something. You heard something. I'm begging you, stay until the end, because Nancy doesn't have time for people to tune out. Are you still with me? Type, I'm still watching in the comments right now. Let me know you're paying attention, because this case is active. This is not cold. This is happening in real time. And while you're watching, while you're listening, Nancy is still out there. Let me tell you about Nancy Ellen Guthrie, not the headlines, not the name attached to a famous news anchor's tragic family drama. Nancy herself, the actual human being. She was born on January 27th, 1942, in a small town called Fort Wright, Kentucky. That makes her 84 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was a mother of three, a grandmother, a widow, a volunteer. She was the kind of person who showed up to church on Sundays and meant it. She wasn't there for the social club. She was there because faith meant something to her. Her husband, Charles, died back in 1988. He was only 49 years old. A mining trip to Mexico, a heart attack, just like that. A woman in her 40s suddenly becomes a single mother, becomes the sole provider, becomes the rock that three kids have to hold on to. And Nancy did that. She raised all three of them on her own. One of those kids became Savannah Guthrie. That name might mean something to you. That name is attached to the NBC Today Show. That name is recognizable. Across America, that name is famous. But to Nancy, she was just Savannah, her daughter, the one she raised after their father died. The one she watched grow up and become this force in broadcast journalism. But here's the thing that matters. Nancy didn't live a glamorous life. She didn't ride on her daughter's success. She made her own way. She worked for 17 years in public relations at the University of Arizona. Then she retired in 2007. She volunteered at her church. She was active in her community. She was sharp, alert. Nobody saw any signs of dementia. Nobody saw any signs of mental decline. Everyone who knew Nancy described her the exact same way. They said she was a force. That's the word. A force. She had this presence, this clarity, this brightness about her, even at 84 years old. But Nancy had limitations. And these limitations matter. These limitations tell us something about her life and what she could and couldn't do. She had a pacemaker. That medical device that sits near your heart and tells it when to beat. Without it, her heart would be at risk. She had chronic heart conditions. She was on daily medication that she could not survive without. She took those pills every single day. They weren't optional. They were the difference between living and dying. And she could walk. Yes, she could walk, but only about 50 yards before her body would give out. 50 yards, that's the length of a football field. And a little bit more. After that, she needed to rest. She needed support. She needed help. She lived alone. That's important. She lived by herself in a small adobe home in the Catalina foothills, which is an unincorporated area north of Tucson, Arizona. The address was near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. And because of where it was located, this case fell under Pima County Sheriff's Department jurisdiction, not Tucson Police. That distinction matters more than you think. Saturday night, January 31st, 2026. This is the night that changes everything. This is the night where life as Nancy knows it ends and a nightmare begins. Early evening, around 5:32 in the afternoon, Nancy takes an Uber to her daughter Annie's house. Annie is Nancy's oldest daughter. Annie is married to a man named Tommaso Tion. Tommaso is 50 years old. He was born on June 18, 1975, in a place called San Giovanni Valdarno, which is in Tuscany, Italy. He came to America. He built a life here. He became a teacher, 6th grade and AP biology at Basis Oro Valley School in Tucson. And he and Annie have been married since September 2006. They have one son together. Nancy's dropped off at Annie and Tommaso's house. Dinner happens. The evening is normal. There's nothing unusual about this night. No warning signs, no red flags waving, just a family having dinner. Nancy enjoying time with her daughter and son-in-law. The kind of evening that happens thousands of times every night in thousands of homes across America. Then, as the evening winds down, around 9:48 at night, Tommaso drives Nancy back home. Let me paint you this picture. It's nighttime. It's quiet. It's the kind of night where nothing seems like it could possibly go wrong. The garage door opens at 9:48. Nancy pulls in. The garage door closes at 9:50. Tommaso leaves. Nancy is alone. That moment when the garage door closes and Nancy walks into her home. That's the last time anyone who loves her ever sees her alive. Let that sink in. That's the last moment. The last goodbye. The last see you later. It doesn't come with a goodbye because nobody knows it's happening. Now I'm going to take you through the timeline. This is all confirmed by digital forensics. This is all verified by law enforcement. Every timestamp, every detail, every second is accounted for because we're living in a world where your devices tell the story of what happens inside your home. 1:47 in the morning, February 1st. Nancy's Google Nest doorbell camera disconnects. Now here's what's important. This isn't a technical glitch. This isn't some software malfunction that happened at random. This is deliberate. Someone physically ripped that camera off the wall. They disconnected it on purpose. They knew it was there. They knew what it did, and they destroyed it. 2:12 in the morning. The camera is offline now, but Google's systems are smart. They have residual technology. Even though the camera is disconnected from the cloud, the motion detection software is still running on the device itself. It's still detecting people. It's still sensing movement. Inside Nancy's home, someone is moving. Someone is there who shouldn't be there. 2:28 in the morning. That's when Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her phone. Think about this. An 84-year-old woman with a heart condition has her pacemaker connected to her phone so doctors can monitor her heart remotely. And at 2:28 in the morning, that connection ends. That's the outer edge of the window. She's either unconscious, she's been restrained, or she's already gone. 3 possibilities. None of them are good. Fast forward to 11:56 in the morning. That's a lot of hours later. That's hours of silence. Hours of Nancy not responding to anything or anyone. Family members arrive at her home because Nancy missed a virtual church service with a friend that morning. They show up expecting to find her. They walk into the house and immediately they know something is catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. Her phone is there, her wallet is there, her medications are sitting right where she left them. Her car is in the garage. Everything that Nancy owns is still in that house. Everything except Nancy, she's gone. 11:56 when they discover it. 12:03 when they call 911. Within hours, Pima County Sheriff's deputies are walking through that house. Within one day, this has gone from a missing person report to a full-scale criminal investigation, and by February 2nd, Sheriff Chris Nanos is standing in front of reporters and cameras, and he's saying something that makes every single person listening feel the blood drain from their face. Nancy did not leave this home voluntarily. She physically could not have walked far on her own. This is a crime scene. Let's talk about what they found. Blood, Nancy's blood, confirmed by DNA testing, not somewhere far away, not at some location miles from her house. On the front porch of her own home, a trail of it leading from inside the house toward the back door. Now, I want to be very clear about this because it's important. It's not the kind of blood you see in a violent homicide. It's not like you're walking into a scene of unimaginable gore and brutality, but it's enough. It's enough to indicate that Nancy was injured. It's enough to indicate that there was a struggle. It's enough to prove that something terrible happened inside that home. The pacemaker. I keep coming back to this because it's the most telling piece of evidence. This isn't a medical device that was surgically removed by someone with training and knowledge. This is a device that was forcibly detached, ripped away, torn out, and then left behind inside the home like it meant nothing, like it was garbage. But to Nancy, it meant everything. Without that pacemaker, her heart is at risk. Without her daily medication, her body begins to fail. Without those two things, Nancy's survival is questionable. Like, whoever took Nancy knew that. That's important. They knew about the pacemaker. They knew about the medication. They knew what she needed to survive, and they took her anyway, which means this wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic. This was someone who had knowledge about Nancy's medical situation. The doorbell camera was destroyed, ripped off the wall, but here's where the investigation gets interesting. The suspect didn't know something crucial. They didn't know that Google Nest systems retain residual data even without an active cloud subscription. The FBI's digital forensics team worked directly with Google engineers. They spent days extracting back-end data from systems the suspect thought were completely dead, and they found something. Surveillance footage from inside the home. It's fragmented, and it's not usable in the way that you could see someone's face clearly, but it's there, it exists. And it gave investigators timestamps, exact proof of when the intrusion happened. No forced entry at any of the doors, no broken windows. So how did the suspect get inside? That's a crucial question. Either the suspect had a key, or Nancy opened the door for them. Think about that for a second. Think about the implications. 84 years old, alone in the middle of the night, and she opens the door. Why would she do that? Now that tells investigators one of two things. Immediately, either she knew this person, either the suspect was someone she recognized and trusted enough to let into her home in the middle of the night, or she was already incapacitated before they entered. Maybe she was drugged. Maybe she was injured. You see, maybe she wasn't in a state of mind to refuse access. Nancy's dog didn't bark. Let me repeat that because it's important. Nancy's dog didn't make a sound. This was an elderly woman's companion animal. Dogs that live with older people, they're protective, they're alert, they go crazy when strangers approach the door. But this dog, silent, absolutely silent. Why? Two possibilities. The dog knew the intruder, or the intruder knew how to keep the dog quiet. Maybe they had experience with dogs. Maybe they brought something to keep the dog calm. Maybe they knew exactly how to neutralize a potential alarm. This was not random. I'm going to say this again because I need you to understand this. This was not some stranger who broke off the street and decided to rob an elderly woman's home. This was someone who knew Nancy. And this was someone who knew her home layout. This was someone who knew her routine. This was someone who knew her vulnerabilities. This was someone who knew where the cameras were located. This was someone who knew about the pacemaker. This was someone who had been watching her, studying her, learning her patterns. And this was planned, not hours before, not the same day, weeks, maybe even months in advance. On February 10th, the FBI released footage that changed everything. I mean everything. This is the moment where the investigation shifts. This is the moment where people can see the suspect. Black and white, grainy, nighttime. A figure approaches Nancy's front door. The person is masked, black ski mask covering their face. The person is gloved, vinyl gloves on both hands. The person is carrying a backpack, a black backpack, hiding 25 liters. And here's the thing that makes your stomach drop. The person is visibly armed. You can see a holstered firearm, a gun. There's a gun. The movements are deliberate, methodical. This isn't someone panicking. This isn't someone operating on impulse or emotion. This is someone who knew exactly what they were doing. This is someone who came prepared. This is someone who had a plan and was executing it. The suspect reaches up toward the doorbell camera and tries to cover it with one hand. It doesn't work. The attempt fails, so they rip out a plant from a nearby planter and shove it in front of the lens. Then they tear the entire camera off the wall. It's like watching someone erase evidence in real time. This isn't panic. This is preparation. This is someone who came ready for everything. Someone who knew there would be a camera, someone who came with a solution for it, someone who was multiple steps ahead of the situation. The FBI's Video Forensic Analysis Unit sat down and studied this footage frame by frame, literally frame by frame. They set up a blackout tent at Nancy's home. They recreated the exact nighttime lighting conditions that existed that night. They tested camera angles with replica clothing. They essentially reverse engineered the entire scenario to try to understand who they were dealing with. On February 12th, they released their suspect description. Male. Approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 in height, average build, wearing a black ski mask, vinyl gloves, and a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. That's important because Ozark Trail is a Walmart exclusive brand. It's cheap. It's available everywhere. There are millions of them. It's basically impossible to trace. But the backpack detail is critical for another reason. Because witnesses reported seeing a figure in a grey hoodie and jeans carrying 2 backpacks about 4 miles from Nancy's home at 1:52 in the morning, same night. Could be the same person, could be a complete coincidence, could be unrelated, but investigators think it matters. Additional evidence. Black gloves recovered about 1.5 miles from the home, sent to the lab for DNA analysis. The results are not public yet, but when they come back, they could change everything. Because DNA doesn't lie. DNA tells the truth. And if those gloves have the suspect's DNA on them, then investigators have a biological match. They have proof. Investigators did something really smart. And they asked neighbors for surveillance footage from 2 very specific time periods. January 11th, 9 at night to midnight. And January 31st, 9:30 in the morning to 11 in the morning. Why those dates? Because investigators believe the suspect was watching Nancy, casing the house, planning the abduction weeks in advance. The January 11th request is particularly telling. That's 3 weeks before the kidnapping. That suggests pre-surveillance. That suggests someone watching the property, learning the patterns, figuring out the security, understanding the layout, understanding when Nancy was home and when she was away. The January 31st morning request suggests something else. Investigators think a suspicious vehicle was in the area hours before Tommaso picked Nancy up for dinner. Which means the suspect might have been watching that day too. Watching as Nancy prepared to go to dinner, watching her get picked up, watching the house become empty, learning the exact moment when she would return. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't someone acting on emotion or rage. This was methodical. This was calculated. This was someone with a purpose. And that's terrifying because calculated criminals are harder to catch. They think things through. They don't make mistakes, or at least they don't make obvious mistakes. And now let me tell you what we don't know. And there's a massive amount that law enforcement isn't saying. There's information that's being held back. There's evidence that's being kept confidential. Sheriff Chris Nanos says the FBI has made substantial progress. What does that mean exactly? Maybe they've identified the suspect. Maybe they know who did this. Maybe they just don't have enough evidence to make an arrest yet. Maybe they're building a case piece by piece. Maybe they're looking for one more piece of the puzzle that will allow them to connect all the dots and bring charges. Or maybe substantial progress is just what you tell the family to keep hope alive. Maybe it's what you tell the media to maintain public confidence. Maybe behind the scenes, the investigators are as lost and confused as everyone else. Maybe they're searching in the dark. Maybe they don't have answers yet. We don't know, and we won't know until the case breaks. Here's the question that haunts every single person involved in this case. The question that wakes people up at night. Is Nancy still alive? The family believes she is. They're operating under the assumption that she's alive. They're negotiating, they're pleading, they're communicating with the suspect, they're holding on to hope with both hands. They're begging for their mother back. But hope isn't evidence. Hope is faith. Evidence is what investigators rely on. And the evidence is grim. 13 days without her pacemaker. 13 days without her medication. 84 years old. Limited mobility. Chronic heart conditions. Even if the kidnapper is providing food and water, which is a massive assumption, even if she's in a temperature-controlled environment, even if she's not being actively harmed, even if she's being treated relatively well, her health is still failing, her body is still declining. Every single day that passes, Nancy is getting weaker. Hey, the human body can survive for a long time without food. Weeks, 30, 40, even 50 days. But medication is different. Heart medication is critical. Miss a few doses and you're in cardiac arrhythmia. Your heart rhythm becomes chaotic. Miss a week and you're in heart failure. Your heart can't pump blood effectively anymore. Miss 2 weeks and your heart stops. It's over, unless the kidnapper has medical knowledge, unless they know exactly what medications Nancy needs and they're providing them, unless they're keeping her alive deliberately. But if that's the case, if the suspect is invested in keeping Nancy alive, why no proof of life? Why hasn't the suspect provided a photo? Why hasn't there been a video? Why no audio recording of Nancy saying she's okay? Why no message proving that she's still breathing? That's standard in kidnapping cases. That's how ransom negotiations work. The family wants proof. The kidnapper provides it. It's how you maintain leverage. It's how you prove the victim is still valuable. It's how you convince the family to keep paying, keep negotiating, keep hoping. The absence of proof of life is the most troubling detail in this entire case. It's the detail that keeps investigators awake. It's the detail that makes families lose hope, because the absence of proof of life suggests one of two things. Either the kidnapper is incompetent, either they don't understand how ransom negotiations work, either they've seen this on television but don't actually know the procedures, either they're winging this and they don't know what they're doing, or Nancy is already dead. And there's no proof of life to provide because there is no life to prove. Investigators are working both angles, searching for her as if she's alive, investigating as if she might be dead, preparing the family for both outcomes while maintaining hope for the better one. It's a delicate balance. It's a tightrope, because you have to keep searching. You have to keep investigating. You have to treat this like she's out there, but you also have to prepare yourself and the family for the possibility that she's not. But 13 days in, let's be honest with each other, the odds are not good. This case is at a critical point, an inflection point. Either something breaks soon or it goes cold. And when cases go cold, they don't always come back. There are missing people who disappear and we never find out what happened to them. They're just gone forever. The evidence is there. I've told you about it. The leads are there. The suspect is out there somewhere, but time is running out. Time is always the enemy in these cases. The FBI needs those black gloves analyzed. They need the DNA processed. They need to run that DNA against databases. They need to find a match. They need to compare it to known offenders. They need to connect it to someone. They need to identify the masked figure. They need to figure out who walked up to Nancy's door at 2 a.m. They need to put a name and a face to that silhouette. They need to trace the vehicle, the one that witnesses saw, the grey hoodie, the jeans, the 2 backpacks. They need to figure out where that person went. They need to follow them. They need to track them. They need to interview every single person who had access to Nancy's home, the landscaper, the housekeeper, the repairman, anyone who's been inside that house in the last year, anyone who knew the layout, anyone who could have observed the security measures. They need to follow the Bitcoin. The ransom demand came through a digital currency. That's traceable, that can be followed, that leaves a digital footprint. They need to track it They need to see where it goes. They need to see who receives it. They need to analyze the ransom notes, handwriting analysis, paper type, ink analysis, everything. They need to figure out who wrote them. They need to find psychological profiles. They need to understand the mindset of the person making demands. They need to execute more search warrants. They need to get into homes. They need to get into vehicles. They need to collect evidence. They need to apply pressure. They need to get someone to talk, and they need to do it now, because every day that passes, evidence degrades, DNA breaks down. The witnesses forget details, memories fade, the trail goes colder and colder until it's frozen solid. Let me ask you something. Let me put you in the mindset of an investigator. Let me walk you through the logic of what we know. Someone took Nancy. Someone planned this. Someone watched her. Someone knew about her pacemaker. Someone knew about her medication. Someone knew her home layout. Someone knew where the cameras were. Someone knew she was alone. Someone knew she would answer the door. That's a lot of knowledge. That's a lot of information about a specific person. Either the suspect is someone close to the family, or there's someone who's been watching Nancy for a very long time. Those are the two options, because you don't just randomly decide to kidnap an 84-year-old woman with a heart condition. That's not a crime of opportunity. That's a crime with purpose. The suspect might be trying to extort Savannah Guthrie. The suspect might believe that a network anchor has significant wealth. The suspect might think that Savannah would pay $6 million to get her mother back. But here's where the logic breaks down. Because even for a network anchor, even for someone with book deals and speaking fees, $6 million is substantial. It's a lot of money. So the question becomes, is this a realistic demand, or is it deliberately unrealistic? Is the suspect setting the ransom so high that it can't be met? Or because if the family can't meet the demand, then the suspect has an excuse. The suspect has a reason why Nancy doesn't come home. I wanted to let her go, the suspect might say. But her family couldn't come up with the money, so it's their fault. Or maybe $6 million isn't about money at all. Maybe it's symbolic. Maybe 6 million represents something. 6 family members, maybe. 6 million for the 6 of you. Is there a message in that number? Is the suspect trying to communicate something through the ransom demand? Or is there no meaning at all? Is it just a number someone pulled out of the air because it sounds big and round and ransom-like? The amount matters because it tells investigators about the suspect's knowledge. If the suspect knows Savannah's financial situation, if the suspect knows what the family can realistically access, then the suspect is close to the family. The suspect has knowledge about family finances. The suspect might be someone they know. If the suspect doesn't know, if they just guessed, if they just threw out a random number, then they're not close to the family. They're not someone with insider knowledge. They're someone who made assumptions based on Savannah being a famous person. Everything I've told you so far is public information. Press releases, news reports, family statements, FBI announcements. It's all out there for anyone to find. But criminal investigations don't happen in public. 90% of the work is invisible. There are witnesses being interviewed that haven't been named. There are search warrants being executed that haven't been reported. There's surveillance footage being analyzed that hasn't been released to the media. There are phone records being pulled, financial records being examined, cell tower data being mapped, DNA samples being collected. All of that is happening. It has to be happening. But it's not public, and it won't be public until there's an arrest or until there's a body. If you're watching this, you might be the person who solves this case. I mean that literally. You might be the key. Maybe you're a neighbor in the Catalina foothills. Maybe you saw a suspicious vehicle on January 31st or February 1st. Maybe you saw someone who didn't belong. Maybe you saw someone casing the neighborhood. Maybe you saw a van or a car parked somewhere odd. Maybe you saw someone walking around at 2 in the morning when everyone else was asleep. Maybe you're a co-worker of someone who suddenly started acting strange. Maybe you're a family member of someone who's been bragging about something they shouldn't be bragging about. Maybe you're a friend of someone who asked too many questions about Nancy. Maybe you're someone who overheard a conversation that seemed off, seemed wrong, seemed like it meant something. Maybe you work at a Walmart and you remember someone buying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack. Maybe you remember someone buying vinyl gloves in bulk. Maybe you remember something that seemed innocent at the time, but now, looking back, seems significant. Maybe you're someone who knows something and you haven't realized it yet. Maybe you know the person who did this. Maybe you see them every day. Maybe they're your neighbor. Maybe they're your co-worker. Maybe they're someone you trust. Maybe that's why you haven't said anything. Maybe you didn't want to believe it. I need you to say something anyway. The tip line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never closes. It's always there. You can call at 3 in the morning if you need to. You can call when you finally realize what you saw. You can call when something clicks. You can call anonymously. Nobody has to know who you are. The FBI can protect your identity. Crime Stoppers can protect your identity. You can go through a lawyer if you want. You can protect yourself while still doing the right thing. The reward is $100,000. No questions asked. Cash paid out. You can walk away with money in your pocket and a clear conscience, but more importantly, you can bring Nancy home. That's what this is about. Alex, that's what matters. It's not about money. It's about a woman who's 84 years old, who's missing her family. It's about a mother who should be home. It's about a grandmother who should be holding her grandchildren. It's about a volunteer at a church who should be serving her community. If you know something, you need to call. You need to speak up. You need to do the right thing. And if you're the person who took Nancy, if you're watching this, if you're listening to these words, I need you to hear this. It's not too late. It's never too late. You can still do the right thing. You can still let her go. You can still make this right, because every hour that passes, this gets worse for you. Every hour, more evidence is collected, more connections are made, more witnesses are interviewed, more leads are followed. The net is tightening around you, and eventually it will close. Eventually you will be caught. Eventually you will face justice. You can wait for that to happen, or you can end this now. Just let Nancy Guthrie go home. That's all anyone wants. That's all the family wants. That's all the investigators want. That's all anyone is asking for. Just let her go home. The question now is, what happens next? What's the next chapter of this story? Does it end with Nancy coming home alive? Does it end with her rescue? Does it end with an arrest and a confession and justice? Or does it end the way these stories sometimes end, with a body being found, with a family having to bury their mother, with an empty chair at the dinner table that will never be filled again? With a missing person poster coming down from bulletin boards and telephone poles and being replaced with a memorial. I don't know which way this goes. Nobody knows right now. But one of those scenarios is about to unfold. One of those futures is about to become reality. The investigators are working around the clock. The FBI is deploying resources. The family is holding on to hope. The public is watching. The entire country is aware of Nancy's disappearance. And someone is sitting somewhere right now, knowing exactly what happened, knowing exactly where she is, knowing exactly what they did. That person is listening to this. That person is watching. That person is reading these words. I'm speaking to you directly. I'm asking you to do the right thing. I'm asking you to come forward. I'm asking you to end this. I'm asking you to let Nancy go home, because Nancy Ellen Guthrie deserves to go home. She deserves to see her family again. She deserves to have her life back. She deserves to be sitting in a church pew on Sunday morning, living out her days in peace and dignity. And if you're the person who took her, the only way that happens is if you make it happen. Let me take you deeper into the family dynamics of this case, because understanding who Nancy was to the people around her helps us understand the stakes, helps us understand why this case matters so much. Savannah Guthrie doesn't just have a famous job. She's been a fixture on American television for decades. She's interviewed presidents. She's covered national tragedies. She's been the voice people hear in the morning when they wake up. She's a professional of the highest caliber. But when her mother disappeared, none of that mattered. None of the accolades, none of the success, none of the fame. It all became irrelevant because her mother was gone. Think about what that does to a person. Here you are, someone accustomed to control, someone accustomed to researching stories, finding answers, delivering news to millions of people, and suddenly you're the story. Suddenly your family's tragedy is being broadcast across the country. Suddenly your personal nightmare is being dissected by every news outlet. Suddenly you can't control the narrative because the narrative is you. Savannah had to go on television and beg for her mother's life. She had to look into cameras, look into the eyes of the American public, and plead for someone to bring Nancy home. Can you imagine the courage that takes? Can you imagine the strength required to do your job, to be the professional news anchor, while your mother is missing and you're terrified she's dead? The family issued statements, gave interviews, appeared on television, all while Nancy was somewhere suffering or not suffering, alive or not alive. They had to go through all the motions of a public kidnapping case while dealing with private horror. Annie, the oldest daughter, the one who had dinner with Nancy that night, she's been living with the guilt, the what-ifs, the if-onlys. If only Tommaso had walked her to the door. If only Nancy had stayed the night. If only someone had known what was about to happen. Cameron, the youngest, is watching his family fall apart, watching his mother deal with her missing grandmother, watching his aunts and uncles and cousins all affected by this tragedy. And Tommaso, the last person to see Nancy alive, he's living with the knowledge that he was the last one, that he drove her home, that he left her there, that whatever happened after he pulled away from the garage. Is he second-guessing himself? Is he wondering if there was something he should have noticed? Is he blaming himself? This is what kidnapping does. It doesn't just take the person, it takes apart the entire family structure. It creates trauma that radiates outward. It affects everyone. Law enforcement works differently than most people think. When you're dealing with the FBI, when you're dealing with a federal crime, there's a whole infrastructure that exists to solve cases. There's technology that the public doesn't even know about. There's surveillance capability that's beyond what most people can imagine. The FBI has specialists. They have behavioral analysts who try to understand the psychology of the suspect. They have forensic accountants who trace money. They have digital forensics experts who can extract data from devices that seem completely destroyed. They have profilers who can read crime scenes like novels. They have agents who specialize in kidnapping cases, agents who've worked hundreds of cases, agents who know every trick, every angle, every possibility. They also have databases, massive databases, criminal history databases, sex offender registries, financial crime databases, communications databases. They can cross-reference information. They can connect dots that seem unconnected. They can see patterns that nobody else sees. They can identify suspects based on behavioral markers, based on crime scene analysis, based on forensic evidence. And they're motivated because a case like this, a case involving a kidnapping, a case that touches a prominent family, a case that's getting media attention, this is the kind of case that moves up the priority list. This is the kind of case where resources get allocated, where overtime gets approved, where people work around the clock, where field offices coordinate with headquarters, where the best agents get assigned, where cutting-edge technology is deployed. But even with all that capability, even with all that technology and all those experts, sometimes the answer doesn't come quickly. Sometimes investigations take time, sometimes the break doesn't come until you least expect it. Sometimes it takes a witness coming forward months or years later. Sometimes it takes a random DNA match that connects to someone incarcerated for a different crime. Sometimes it takes luck. Sometimes it takes someone making a mistake. Let's talk about the physical evidence in detail, because forensic evidence is the language that crime speaks. It doesn't lie. It doesn't forget. It doesn't get confused. The blood found on Nancy's front porch has been analyzed, DNA extracted, matched definitively to Nancy. But the pattern of the blood tells a story. The location tells a story. The amount tells a story. Forensic scientists can determine what happened based on blood spatter. They can determine if there was a struggle. They can determine if Nancy was injured while standing or while in a different position. The black gloves are crucial. Because gloves mean the suspect knew about DNA evidence. The suspect knew that handling someone without gloves would leave biological evidence. The suspect came prepared. The suspect thought ahead, and yet the gloves were recovered. Maybe they were discarded carelessly. Maybe the suspect forgot about them. Maybe they were dropped during the escape. But they exist, and they might contain DNA. The pacemaker that was ripped from Nancy provides more clues. Whoever did this had to know where the pacemaker was located, had to know how to detach it, had to have enough strength to force it from her body. That suggests either medical knowledge or extreme force. Either way, it suggests violence. It suggests the person was willing to hurt Nancy. The destroyed cameras tell us about the suspect's technical knowledge, or their lack of it. Because a truly knowledgeable person might have thought to destroy the cloud backup, might have thought to disable the entire system at the source. But this suspect only destroyed the physical cameras, only focused on what they could see, which suggests someone with basic technical knowledge but not advanced knowledge, someone who knew cameras existed and knew how to break them, but didn't understand the full scope of digital systems. Let me walk you through the timeline again, but this time I want you to think about what it means, what each moment tells us. 5:32 in the afternoon. Nancy takes an Uber to her daughter's house. Someone is watching this? Are they? Does the suspect know about this dinner? Does the suspect know Nancy will be out of the house? Is this part of the surveillance? Is the suspect watching to see when Nancy leaves? 9:48 at night. The garage door opens. Nancy arrives home. The garage door closes. Whoever is watching, if anyone is watching, knows Nancy is now alone in the house. Knows this is the vulnerable moment, knows the window is opening. 40 minutes of silence. 40 minutes where we don't know what's happening. Is Nancy going to bed? Is she on her pacemaker monitoring app? Is she turning on the news? Is she unaware of what's about to happen? 1:47 in the morning. The doorbell camera disconnects. This is the first active move. This is the suspect making themselves known. This is the moment the crime transitions from planning to action. 25 minutes. Between the camera disconnect and the pacemaker disconnect, what happens in those 25 minutes? Does the suspect have to locate the pacemaker? Does Nancy put up a fight? Does the suspect have to restrain her? Does something go wrong that requires additional time? 2:28 in the morning. The pacemaker disconnects. Nancy is gone from the house or incapacitated inside the house. Either way, the crime is now committed. Whatever happens from this point on is aftermath. Almost 10 hours of silence. Almost 10 hours where Nancy's family doesn't know she's missing. Almost 10 hours where the suspect could be driving away, could be fleeing, could be relocating Nancy, could be covering their tracks. This timeline is a roadmap of the crime. Every moment matters. Every gap tells us something. Let me tell you what we can infer about the suspect based on the evidence. This is intelligent speculation. So this is what a behavioral analyst might say. This is what the FBI's profilers are probably thinking right now. Someone who plans a crime this carefully is organized. They're not impulsive. They don't act on emotion. They think things through. They anticipate problems. They plan solutions. This is someone with intelligence, someone with patience, someone capable of delayed gratification, someone who can wait weeks to execute a plan, someone who doesn't need instant gratification. Someone who takes an elderly woman with a heart condition is either someone who has medical knowledge or someone who's willing to accept the risk that she might die. Neither option is good, but the second option is worse. It suggests someone who's confident in their ability to keep her alive, or someone who doesn't care if she dies. And if the suspect doesn't care if Nancy dies, that tells us this is about something other than money. This might be about revenge, about power, about control, about making a statement. Someone who demands a specific ransom amount, $6 million, is someone who either knows the family's financial situation or someone who's making educated guesses based on public information. Savannah Guthrie is a public figure. Her salary is public. Her book deals are reported. But $6 million is still a significant portion of her net worth. It's not something you ask for unless you believe it's possible, unless you've researched it, unless you know something about Savannah's finances. Someone who plans to watch a victim for weeks in advance is someone who's willing to invest time, someone who's patient, someone who's obsessive, someone who might be stalking for the first time, or someone who has stalked before. Obsessive behavior is a marker. It's a red flag. It suggests someone who's become fixated, someone who's thought about this constantly, someone who's drawn to Nancy or to Savannah or to the idea of this crime, someone who disables cameras and technology, demonstrates knowledge about security systems. This could be someone with a background in security, someone with IT knowledge, someone who's researched how homes are monitored, someone who's studied Nancy's specific home before acting, someone who knows the vulnerabilities, someone who knows the strengths. This profile paints a picture of someone organized, someone intelligent, someone capable, someone dangerous, someone who's thought this through, someone who's planned this meticulously. It's someone who's either close to the family with inside knowledge or someone who's a professional criminal. Either way, this is someone who represents a serious threat, someone who cannot be underestimated, someone who knows what they're doing. The ransom demand came in Bitcoin. That's important. That tells us something about the suspect, because Bitcoin isn't used by people who don't understand technology. Bitcoin requires knowledge. It requires understanding of digital currency. It requires knowing how to set up wallets and track transactions. It requires knowing how to exchange it for real money. Bitcoin also provides a false sense of anonymity. A lot of people think Bitcoin is untraceable. They think it's like cash. They've seen movies where hackers use Bitcoin and nobody can find them. But Bitcoin isn't untraceable. Every transaction is recorded on a public ledger. The blockchain doesn't lie. Every transfer is permanent and visible. Investigators can follow Bitcoin. They can see where it goes. They can see who receives it. The anonymity is a myth, but the suspect might not know that. The suspect might believe they're being smart by using Bitcoin. The suspect might think they're ahead of law enforcement. The suspect might think they're using cutting-edge criminal methodology, but they're not. They're making it easier to catch them. They're creating a digital trail that leads straight back to them. Investigators are watching. They're monitoring the wallets. They're seeing who receives that Bitcoin. They're connecting that to identities. They're following the digital trail, and that trail will lead somewhere. That trail will connect to someone. That connection is inevitable. When a person goes missing, search and rescue becomes a massive operation. Volunteers show up, search dogs are deployed, helicopters circle overhead, boats drag waterways, cadaver-sniffing dogs are brought in, thermal imaging scans properties. Investigators expand the search area in concentric circles from the last known location. They search likely places, water sources, wooded areas, abandoned buildings, anywhere a person might be taken, anywhere a body might be hidden. The family puts up posters, creates social media pages, reaches out to national media, tries to keep the case in the public eye, because cases stay in the public eye when there's pressure. Pressure from the media, pressure from the public, pressure from celebrities and politicians. Savannah Guthrie's prominence is both a blessing and a curse in this case. It's a blessing because it brings national attention, because it means resources, because it means the case gets coverage. But it's a curse because it attracts attention from the wrong people, from people who want to play detective, from people who want to inject themselves into the narrative, from people who want to claim responsibility, from false confessions. Law enforcement has to sort through all of that noise to find the signal, has to separate the helpful information from the useless, has to distinguish between real leads and false leads. The worst part of a case like this is the waiting, the not knowing, the uncertainty. Hours pass like days, days pass like weeks, and every single moment somewhere, Nancy is either alive or not alive. There's no middle ground. She's either breathing or not breathing. She's either suffering or not suffering. She's either hoping for rescue or she's past hope. The family can't move forward, can't plan, can't grieve, can't accept. They're stuck in this horrible liminal space where their mother is missing but not dead. Not dead, but possibly dead. Possibly alive, but possibly not alive. It's psychological torture. They go to work because they have to. They go through the motions. They put on a brave face, but they're torn apart inside. Every phone call makes their heart stop. Every knock on the door makes them hope and dread at the same time. Every news report is both a relief that the case is being covered and a terror of what the news might say. This is the hidden trauma of kidnapping cases. This is what nobody talks about. This is the psychological destruction that happens to families while the world watches. Every moment that passes is a moment that matters. Every moment is evidence that could degrade. Every moment is a clue that could fade from memory. Every moment is a window that's closing. If Nancy is alive, then every moment she's not home is a moment she's suffering. Every moment is pain. Every moment is fear. Every moment is the slow degradation of her health. Heart is struggling without medication. Her body is struggling without proper care. She's fading. She's getting weaker. If Nancy is not alive, then the crime scene is aging. Evidence is degrading. DNA is breaking down. The trail is going colder and colder. Either way, time is an enemy. Time is running out. If you're watching this and you have information, the time to speak is now. Well, it's not tomorrow, not next week, now, because every moment you wait is a moment Nancy doesn't get back. You can call the tip line. You can remain anonymous. You can protect yourself while still doing the right thing. You can get information to law enforcement in multiple ways. You can go through Crime Stoppers. You can contact the FBI directly. You can send anonymous tips through their website. You can share this video. You can share Nancy's face. You can share the details. You can keep her story alive. You can keep her name in the public consciousness. You can be the person who brings her case from obscurity into the light. You can look at the suspect description. Do you know anyone who matches that description? Do you know anyone who was acting suspiciously around January 31st or February 1st? Do you know anyone who has a Black Ozark Trail backpack? Do you know anyone who asked questions about Nancy? Do you know anyone who knew details about her home that they shouldn't have known? You can pay attention to people around you. You can notice behavioral changes. You can see patterns that might indicate guilt. You can recognize the signs of someone who's hiding something. You can be the witness that changes everything. This is the Untold Cold Case. Nancy Ellen Guthrie, 84 years old, mother, grandmother, friend, volunteer, beloved member of her community, taken from her home in the middle of the night, still missing, still out there somewhere, still needing to come home. If you found this case compelling, if you think Nancy deserves justice, if you believe that someone who takes an elderly woman should answer for their crimes, then please like this video. Comment what you think happened. Tell me your theories. Tell me what you believe. Tell me if you know something. Subscribe to the Untold Cold Case, because we never stop investigating, and we never give up on cases like Nancy's. Share this video. Share Nancy's story. Share her face. Share the details. Share the suspect description, because the more people who know, the more likely someone recognizes something. The more likely someone comes forward. The more likely Nancy comes home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about a woman you've never met. Thank you for staying engaged with this story. Thank you for staying with me until the very end, because empathy matters, because justice matters, because Nancy matters, because in a world where we can ignore tragedy, where we can scroll past heartbreak, where we can ignore missing persons, you chose to stop. You chose to pay attention. You chose to care. That matters. Your attention matters. Your engagement matters. Your willingness to share this story matters. If you see something, say something. If you know something, call the tip line. If you have information, come forward. Don't stay silent. Don't wait. Don't second guess yourself. Don't convince yourself that someone else will speak up. Don't rationalize your silence, because if you don't speak up, then no one will. Because if you know something and you stay quiet, then you're letting Nancy down. You're allowing the person who took her to get away with it. Nancy doesn't have time for hesitation.
Nancy doesn't have time for you to think about it. Nancy doesn't have time for delays. Nancy needs help now. Today, this moment, we're looking for her. The investigators are looking for her. The family is looking for her. The entire country is looking for her. And somewhere out there, someone is looking at this and realizing they're the piece that was missing. Realizing they have information that matters. Realizing they can change the outcome of this case. That person is you. That person watching right now, you're the one. You're the key. You're the person who has been waiting to speak up but hasn't found the right moment. This is the right moment. You have the power to bring Nancy home. use it. Before we end, I need you to understand something fundamental. This is not entertainment. This is not a mystery to solve for fun.
I mean, this is not a puzzle where getting the wrong answer means you just try again. Nancy Ellen Guthrie is a real person. She's suffering or she's dead. There's no middle ground. There's no third option where she's somewhere safe and comfortable. There's only suffering or death. Those are the only two possibilities when someone is kidnapped. The family is suffering. Every single day is torture for them. Every moment is agony. Every phone call could be the one. Every news alert could be the announcement. They're living in a state of perpetual fear and hope simultaneously. That combination will destroy you. It will break you. It will tear you apart from the inside. The investigators are working cases. They're interviewing suspects. They're analyzing evidence. They're following leads, but they need help. They need the public. They need you.
They need someone to come forward. They need someone to say something. They need a witness. They need a tip. They need that one piece of information that breaks the case wide open. And you might have it. You might be the person. You might be the one who holds the key. This is real. Nancy is real. The crime is real. The urgency is real. Please take this seriously.